Do this one thing, and she will come back to you. There's one mistake almost every man makes when a woman starts to pull away, and it doesn't happen because he's weak or because he doesn't care. It happens because he cares too much and doesn't understand how to handle that feeling properly. Everything feels good at the beginning. The conversations flow, the energy is mutual, the effort is balanced, and there's a sense of progress. Then something changes, not in a loud or obvious way, but in a subtle shift that you can feel. The replies slow down, the enthusiasm drops slightly, the consistency is no longer the same, and that's when your mind starts working against you. You begin to think more than usual. You replay conversations. You look for something you might have done wrong. You start asking yourself questions that don't have clear answers. Did I say too much? Did I come on too strong? Is she losing interest? And before you even realize what's happening, your behavior starts to change. You start texting more, trying to keep the conversation alive. You try to bring back the energy that used to be there. You become more available, more responsive, more present than before. And in your mind, you believe you are fixing the situation. You believe you're holding things together. But what you are actually doing is the exact opposite. Because when someone creates distance and you respond by chasing, you remove the one thing that could naturally bring them back, and that is space. And space is something most people are uncomfortable with. It feels like losing control. It feels like doing nothing. It feels like watching something slip away without trying to stop it. And that fear is what drives most men to act in ways that make the situation worse. Imagine this situation. You send a message, and she doesn't reply for hours, maybe even the whole day. Before, she used to reply quickly, so now the delay feels significant. You check your phone multiple times. You open the chat again and again. You reread what you sent, and slowly, your mind starts building scenarios. Maybe she's busy, but she wasn't busy before. Maybe she's talking to someone else. Maybe she's just losing interest. And that internal pressure keeps building until you feel the need to do something. So you send another message. Maybe something casual. Maybe something like, "Hey, are you there?" Or you try to start a new conversation entirely. Not because you had something important to say, but because you wanted to relieve that feeling of uncertainty. But that action reveals something. It shows that your emotional state is now dependent on her response. It shows that you are reacting instead of staying grounded. And once that shift happens, the dynamic changes, because now, instead of being someone who is stable and consistent, you become someone who is trying to regain control of the situation. Now imagine a different response. You send the message, and there is no reply. You notice it, of course, but you don't react immediately. You don't send another message. You don't try to force a response. You go back to your life. You focus on what you were doing before. Your work, your routine, your priorities. And this is not about pretending you don't care. It's about not allowing uncertainty to control your behavior. Because your life does not pause just because someone hasn't replied yet. And this is where the one thing comes in. You step back, not in a dramatic way, not in a way that looks like you're trying to prove a point, but in a controlled, natural way. You stop trying to fix the situation. You stop trying to bring things back immediately. You allow space to exist. Now let's go deeper into another situation. Things are going well, and suddenly she becomes less engaged. Her replies are shorter. The conversation feels different. You can feel the drop in energy. Most men react by increasing effort. They send longer messages. They ask more questions. They try to make the conversation interesting again. They try to bring back the spark. But this creates pressure, because now, instead of the interaction being natural, it becomes forced. A high-level response looks different. You notice the change, but you don't chase it. You don't try to immediately fix it. You match the energy. You don't go below it, and you don't go above it. You stay consistent. And this consistency does something powerful. It removes pressure from the situation. It allows things to stabilize instead of forcing them to react. Now consider another scenario. She says something like, "I need space," or "I've been busy," or "I'm dealing with some things right now." Most men hear this and immediately go into problem-solving mode. They try to understand what's wrong. They try to stay present. They try to show support, sometimes even over-support. But what she is actually asking for is space, not solutions, not constant presence, not increased attention. And this is where most people fail. They hear space, but they respond with more presence. And that creates a contradiction. Because now, instead of reducing pressure, they're increasing it. A grounded response is simple. You respect it. You don't question it repeatedly. You don't try to stay involved in every moment. You step back and allow her to have that space fully. Another situation. She cancels plans. Maybe last minute. Maybe with a reason that feels uncertain. Most men react emotionally. They feel disrespected. They question it. They try to reschedule immediately. They try to keep things moving. But again, that reaction comes from discomfort. A more controlled response is calm. You accept it without making it a big issue. You don't chase a new plan immediately. You let things breathe, because your time has value, and you don't need to force availability. Now here is something important that most people overlook. Stepping back is not just physical. It is mental, because you can stop texting, but still be mentally attached. You can stop reaching out, but still be constantly thinking about her, checking her activity, wondering what she's doing. And that means you haven't really stepped back. You are still emotionally reacting, just in a quieter way. Real detachment means you are okay with uncertainty. You are okay not knowing exactly what's happening. You are okay with the outcome not being guaranteed. And that level of calm is what creates real control. Because now, your behavior is not driven by fear of losing something. It is driven by stability within yourself. And this is where the shift becomes powerful. Because when you stop chasing, when you stop reacting, when you stop trying to force connection, something changes in the dynamic. You become less predictable in a reactive way and more stable in a grounded way. And that stability creates curiosity. It creates space for her to come toward you instead of feeling like she is being pulled. Now, let's be clear about something. This is not a trick to make someone come back. This is not manipulation. This is alignment. Because if the connection is real, space allows it to breathe and return naturally. And if it is not real, space reveals that clearly without you having to force anything. And this is where most men struggle with the truth. Because they want a guaranteed outcome. They want to know that if they do this one thing, she will come back. But that is not how it works. The real win is not controlling whether she comes back. The real win is not losing yourself, trying to keep someone who is pulling away. Because when you chase, you lose your position. When you react emotionally, you lose your stability. But when you step back with control, you keep your self-respect. And that self-respect is more valuable than any single outcome. At the end of the day, what brings someone back is not pressure. It is not constant communication. It is not over-effort. It is absence combined with stability. It is knowing that your presence is not guaranteed, but it is also not desperate. It is calm. It is controlled. It is grounded in something deeper than the moment. And when someone feels that difference, they respond to it. Not because you forced them to, but because the dynamic allowed it. And if they don't respond, then the space has given you something even more important. Clarity. Clarity that allows you to move forward without confusion, without overthinking, and without staying stuck in something that was not aligned. And that is the real power of stepping back. Not bringing someone back, but bringing yourself back to a place of control, clarity, and self-respect. And from that place, every decision you make becomes stronger, clearer, and more aligned with who you actually are.
Follow for more if you want to understand women better.